I'm Alejandra Martinez.
And I'm Evangelista Cobos.
And our project is Native Americans and Media Representation.
A few systems of power that we can connect back to our intersection includes colonialism with the erasure of culture and the villainization of Native American people, capitalism with the exploitation of resources and culture for monetary value, and lastly, racism with the overall harmful and just racist stereotypes of Native Americans in the media. However, we think the most powerful system of power is colonialism because racism and capitalism connect back. So for our metaphor, we're showing two little kids watching television and seeing themselves in totally different ways. They're being represented in totally different ways. So the first kid is a kid who is positively represented in media. So let's say a white kid, and they are being shown this positive media, and it's making them have a much easier life because of this media, because it shows that they can get to where they want to go, they can do these things that they want to do, and people don't have these false ideologies about them. While the second little kid, which is a minority or a person of a minority group, so like a Native American, is shown negatively in media, and they are negatively impacted. So the same stairs, but it's much harder to get where they want to go because of these false ideologies of these types of people.
The media fails to represent Native Americans and constantly portrays them with harmful stereotypes through films, cartoons, television, and other forms of media. These harmful stereotypes also cause misconceptions and produce a false image of Native Americans. And because of these stereotypes, and with people carrying these false ideals about Indigenous people, misrepresentation erases true Indigenous identity and their different, diverse cultures.
Barely even human.
Native American stereotypes are seen in many types of media, such as famous films and sports that you might have seen already.
Some common Native American stereotypes in media include wearing headdresses and feathers, or just being portrayed with red skin, or commonly known as like Redskins. They're always associated with animals and nature, are constantly depicted as savages or very similar to animals, and also the hypersexualization of costumes and Indigenous wear.
A common Native American stereotype is a strong stoic type, which is a person who can endure pain or hardship without showing their feelings or complaining. Some characters in the media that portray the stereotype include Kocoum from Pocahontas and Chief Bromden from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
The strong stoic type is commonly seen in men in the Native American media. So, like the two examples you see, both are men and both are Native American, obviously. So first we have Kocoum from Pocahontas, which if you've seen Pocahontas, you know that Kocoum is a strong, silent warrior, and he hardly complains, or when he does, it's because just he needs to for the movie, for the sake of the movie. But overall, he's this strong, silent character. And then in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Chief Bromden, who is this mute Native American strong man, and he is, the entire movie is just completely mute, never complains, obviously, and just is silent and strong. So that's a very common stereotype in Native American media.
The media tends to also always portray Native Americans as animals. This is another common theme with Native Americans in media, with being connected with nature and becoming animals.
This idea of Native American people being animals or uncivilized or even savage is not new, and it's very common in Native American media. In fact, this is like the most widely spread media of Native Americans, and it's very weird to see it altogether, because all these characters are animals or have animalistic traits, and even in the news, these people are called indigenous creatures as if they aren't human. And it's just so strange to see, and it's super toxic and negative to this group of people. And some may say that I am reaching, because Native Americans do have a history of appreciating animals and loving animals and being very close and connected to animals, which is true, and it makes sense why all these things are like fantasy and kind of try to connect with that. But it's the fact that the people that are supposed to be Native American are the animals and just aren't like connected and stuff. Like, that is a very toxic stereotype, and it's very common, and you don't realize it until you kind of see it all being put together like this. And I didn't even realize it, so it's very surprising to see all together. But either way, it's a very toxic and negative thing to see in media.
Unfortunately, media has driven these stereotypes in movies and cartoons and other forms of media that young children watch and consume, such as Disney's romanticized version of Pocahontas, which really just covers up the dark history that was behind her story. And even with elementary schools encouraging cultural appropriation with hosting Thanksgiving parties that also involve making stereotypical Native American clothes or costumes, like, feathers and headdresses and all these stereotypes that we mentioned in our presentation so far. And even with schools teaching about Thanksgiving, they leave out a lot of the details and the actual real history of Thanksgiving, and just make it seem like everything was okay, that there's this good relationship with Native Americans and pilgrims and white colonizers, when in reality that's really not the truth, and just really harms Native American representation in media and just really feeds into the stereotypes.
Lastly, we have this page of just offensive Native American stereotypes in media. This includes this idea of a red-skinned people or red-skinned Native Americans, which is portrayed in the youth media with Peter Pan and the literal bright red cartoon characters, and then even with adults, the red-skinned football team, which recently changed their name, but that normalized the cultural appropriation with headdresses, face paint, and the overall use of the name Redskin is just terrible because it's derogatory and it's just very offensive. And then we have, of course, the classic Native American costume with the headdress. So, yeah, we're thankfully steering away from this, but sometimes you will still see it today, and we just need to keep working on ourselves. But we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm proud to say it.
Data collected from the Hollywood Diversity Report of 2022 by UCLA reported that Native Americans are one of the least represented in media today. The upper left graph shows that only 2% of Native Americans are represented in broadcast scripted shows. The upper right graph shows that 0.4% are represented in cable scripted shows. And on the bottom graph, only 0.8% of Native Americans are represented in digital scripted shows. Constant misrepresentation and all these stereotypes that we talked about only interfere and harm the chance for Native Americans to be correctly represented in media. And a lot of the times, Native American characters are actually played by white, non-Indigenous actors, which only contribute to cultural appropriation and the erasure of Native Americans in mainstream media. And even after a long history of colonialism, Native American communities have been reduced to a small amount, and it's harder for Native Americans to be allowed a chance of representation in pop culture or any form of media at all.
So how can we do better? We can do better by educating ourselves and our family or friends, especially including the younger generation. We can start to acknowledge the misrepresentation in media and recognize how it's harmful to that minority. Lastly, we can stop appropriating Native American culture altogether, whether it's an inappropriate Halloween costume or the wrongful use of a headdress. We can do better when it comes to natives in the media, and let's all work together to improve ourselves.